mortals. There are names buried beneath history, not forgotten but deliberately left behind, not erased, avoided. Because some things are not meant to be understood, only acknowledged at a distance. Over 2,000 years ago, in the deserts of ancient Mesopotamia, a figure began to appear in carvings, amulets, and ritual texts, a presence tied to disease, famine, and the invisible force of the wind. Its name was Pazuzu. In 1973, that name resurfaced, quietly, inside a film that would go on to become one of the most disturbing ever made. Not as fiction, but as something taken from reality. Why would a modern production reach back into ancient mythology? And why did so many things go wrong when they did? Some names carry weight. This is one of them.
The film does not begin with possession. It begins with discovery. Far from the events that would later unfold in Washington, D.C., the opening sequence of The Exorcist takes place in northern Iraq. An archaeological site, dry air, minimal dialogue, long stretches of silence. A man works alone among the ruins. Father Marin. He is not searching for answers. He is uncovering something that has already been waiting. The sequence is slow, almost procedural. Dust is brushed away from fragments of the past, coins, tools, broken pieces of civilization long gone. Nothing appears unusual at first, until an object is revealed, a small artifact. Rough, aged, distorted. Its shape is not immediately clear, but its presence lingers longer than it should. The camera does not rush past it. It pauses. Then, later, a full statue, standing against the horizon. Humanoid, but wrong. Elongated limbs, a rigid posture, wings extending outward from its back. The head resembles something animal, but not entirely recognizable. The face is fixed in a permanent expression that resists interpretation. It is not introduced. There is no explanation, only a name implied through context. Pazuzu. At the time of the film's release in 1973, most audiences had never heard it before. But the figure was not invented, it was selected. The statue seen in that opening sequence is based on real artifacts recovered from ancient Mesopotamia, objects that date back over 2.5 millennia, long before modern religion, long before the structure of good and evil was defined in the way most people understand it today. Pazuzu does not belong to that system. And that is what makes the introduction effective, because nothing about it feels framed for the audience. There is no warning, no mythology explained, only a quiet suggestion that something very old has been found again. Historically, references to Pazuzu appear across multiple regions of Mesopotamia, particularly during the first millennium BCE, not in grand temples, not as a central deity, but in smaller, more personal forms. Amulets, carvings, protective objects carried or placed within homes. The purpose was not worship, it was defense, which raises a contradiction, because Pazuzu was not considered safe. Ancient texts describe him as a force associated with destructive winds, currents believed to carry plague, drought, and famine across entire regions. Not a being that acted with intent, but one that existed as a condition, something that moved unseen, something that passed through. And yet, despite that, his image was invoked deliberately, worn, displayed, called upon, because there was something worse. Another entity recorded in the same mythology, Lamashtu, a figure associated with the death of infants, the targeting of mothers, and the disruption of life at its earliest stages. Where Lamashtu represented direct harm, Pazuzu represented control, not protection in the modern sense, but opposition. An older force used to keep another at bay. This is where the historical record becomes less clear, because what remains are fragments, partial inscriptions, broken figures, recovered objects without context. There is no complete narrative, only patterns, repeated imagery, and a name that continues to appear across them: Pazuzu. The consistency suggests recognition, not reverence, but familiarity, as if the presence was already understood without needing to be explained. Which makes the decision behind The Exorcist more deliberate than it first appears. Because the film does not attempt to teach the audience who Pazuzu is. It assumes the opposite: that the less you understand it, the more effective it becomes. And that opening sequence establishes something critical. Before any possession, before any ritual, before any explanation, there is already a connection in place between the past and what is about to happen. The artifact is not just an object. It is a reintroduction, something removed from the ground
and returned to view.
In surviving Mesopotamian records, Pazuzu is not introduced gradually. He appears fully formed. His name is written in cuneiform across incantations, protective texts, and ritual objects dating primarily between the 8th and 6th centuries BCE, though his conceptual origin likely predates these records by centuries. He is identified with a specific title: King of the Wind Demons, not a metaphor, a classification. In Mesopotamian cosmology, wind was not neutral. It was a carrier of heat, of sand, of disease. Seasonal winds moving across regions were associated with outbreaks of illness, failed harvests, and sudden environmental collapse. To name the wind was to attempt control over it. Pazuzu represented the southwest wind in particular, a current feared for bringing drought and pestilence from arid regions into populated areas. This association was not symbolic, it was observational. When the wind came, conditions worsened, and over time, that pattern became identity. Unlike later demonologies, there is no evidence that Pazuzu tempted, negotiated, or deceived. He was not a corrupter. He was an arrival, a shift in conditions, a presence that indicated something had already begun. Physically, his representation remains consistent across artifacts recovered from sites in Assyria and Babylonia. A composite figure, humanoid in structure, but anatomically unstable. The body is gaunt, often emaciated to the point where ribs are visible beneath the surface. Musculature is exaggerated in some depictions, but not in a way that suggests strength. More often, it suggests tension. The head is animalistic. Descriptions vary between canine and leonine, though neither classification is exact. The mouth is open, exposing rows of teeth that are too uniform to be natural. The eyes are circular, protruding, and fixed forward, unblinking. 4 wings extend from the back, 2 raised, 2 lowered. This configuration is not decorative. It implies suspension, movement between states rather than grounded presence. The lower body often terminates in a scorpion's tail. Curved forward, elevated, prepared, but not striking. In some carvings, genitalia are exaggerated or distorted, a detail consistent with other Mesopotamian depictions of chaotic or liminal entities. Every component appears deliberate. Nothing is aesthetic. Everything communicates imbalance. Most surviving representations of Pazuzu are not large statues, but small-scale objects. Amulets, typically cast in bronze, designed to be worn or placed within domestic spaces. Many include inscriptions, short invocations requesting protection, often specifically against Lamashtu. This is where Pazuzu's role becomes structurally important. Because Lamashtu was not abstract, she was feared in a direct, personal way, associated with infant mortality, miscarriage, and complications during childbirth. Pazuzu, by contrast, operated at scale. He did not select, he spread. And within that difference, a functional relationship emerged. Texts describe Pazuzu driving Lamashtu away, not out of opposition in a moral sense, but through dominance. One force displacing another. Families kept his image not because he was safe, but because he was predictable. This is not protection. It is substitution. By the early 1970s, horror cinema was undergoing a shift. Less theatrical, more observational. The Exorcist emerged within that transition under director William Friedkin, built around a principle of realism. Performances were restrained, dialogue was natural, medical procedures were presented with precision. Everything was designed to feel plausible, which made one decision stand out. The entity itself. The film begins outside Christianity, in Iraq, in history, in something older. The statue is not symbolic. It is based on real Mesopotamian artifacts, unexplained, uncontextualized, presented without guidance. This removes distance. There is no framing, only implication. The exorcism that follows uses Catholic ritual, but the entity does not originate from that system. This creates a structural mismatch. The ritual assumes something that can be addressed, named, removed. Pazuzu does not demonstrate those properties historically. He is older than the framework confronting him, which raises a question. Why choose something real? The film could have created its own entity. Instead, it selected one already documented, incomplete, unresolved, and allowed that ambiguity to remain. During production, multiple incidents were documented. A fire destroyed large portions of the set. The cause was electrical. The bedroom set remained intact. Actress Ellen Burstyn sustained a permanent back injury during a rigged scene. Linda Blair experienced spinal strain from similar equipment. Technical malfunctions occurred throughout filming. Equipment failed. Lighting systems malfunctioned. These were not unusual individually, but frequent. Reports of noises and disturbances were noted by cast and crew. These accounts are anecdotal. Several individuals connected to the production died around the time of filming. These deaths were unrelated, but often grouped together. A priest, Father Thomas Birmingham, was brought in to bless the set, not as a response to a specific event, but as a precaution. No single cause links these incidents. They remain separate, grouped later under a single label, a curse. The Exorcist premiered in 1973. Reports of audience reactions began immediately. Viewers fainted, vomited, left theaters early. Medical assistance was required in some cases. These events were documented by news outlets. The reactions were not universal, but frequent enough to be reported consistently. Churches responded. Some warned against the film. Others saw increased inquiries about possession. The film received major award nominations. Its reputation expanded beyond typical horror. The reports became part of its identity. Not explained, only recorded. Pazuzu is not defined by morality. He is defined by function. Environmental disruption. The spread of disease through wind. He does not negotiate. He does not communicate. He is not an actor. He is a process. His presence is inferred through outcome, not interaction. This separates him from later religious constructs. He is not bound to systems that came after. He exists outside them, not in opposition, but independently. Pazuzu artifacts exist in museums, cataloged, studied, displayed. His image appears in private collections and media, often without context. Modern interpretations exist, but they are reconstructions. There is no continuous tradition, only fragments, preserved, repeated. The film used something real. The events are documented. The reactions are recorded. Each stands independently. They do not require connection, but they are often viewed together. The figure was not created, only presented. What that means beyond the film remains unverified.
Some names persist, not because they are remembered, but because they are recorded. Pazuzu is one of them, not fully understood, only identified. The film did not conclude anything. It referenced something that already existed and placed it into view. If something does not require belief, then its absence is not defined by disbelief, only by lack of recognition.